We are a holistic, diverse ministry for the entire family, grounded in love in order to save the lost, disciple believers, build strong families, and be change agents for Christ in the community. We call ourselves life changers because when you connect with us, our core values of the welcome, the worship, the word, and the witness will change your life forever. Need a change? The new life experience is simply life changing. Welcome to eChurch. Tonight we're going to deal with oppressed into life. Oppressed into life. But before we get into that, I just want to just say shout out to all of the ministers and the elders that sat in this seat over the past couple of 3 weeks, and man, was that word good. Now, if you agree with me, put an amen in the chat. I just wanted to shout out my ministers, shout out my elders. They are anointed. I enjoyed the word that God gave them as we built up to Pentecost Sunday. Well, now we're shifting. We're into June, and I know all of you horoscope folk out here just thinking, you know, it's Gemini. It's Gemini. I'm a Gemini. It's June and all of that. Well, this ain't got nothing to do with no horoscope. The word that I'm going to give you all tonight, the word that I'm going to begin this whole series on, has a lot to do with June, though. Juneteenth. Now, we're going to get more into it, but tonight, it's all about oppressed into life. Oppressed into life. Now, before we get into that, I just want to welcome all of you who, maybe you're thumbing by, maybe you're saying, man, what is this? I've never seen eChurch before. Well, hold on. Don't thumb by anymore because I'm going to minister a powerful word with great revelation and application. All right, so hold on. Don't go anywhere. If you're a life changer, you already know the deal. We want to give you an opportunity to give. They're going to put the link so you can see it in the lower thirds, and they're just going to make sure that you're able to give your tithes and your offerings. If you are not a life changer, we believe in the local church. We would love for you to plant a seed because we're good soil and both of us will grow. But your tithe belongs to your local church. So we want to give you that opportunity to give, want to give you that opportunity to come out and be with us. We wish you were here, but we're glad you're there. There's going to be a great word tonight. And for the balance of this month, we're going to be dealing with only on Wednesday night, this whole thinking, this whole thought of how we look at today's current events and make application into our very own lives right now. And tonight, oppressed into life. Can you say that? Oppressed into life. Here's the text. The text is Exodus 1:6 and following. Exodus 1:6 and following. I want you to hear this text. Now Joseph and all his brothers and all that generation died. But the Israelites were exceedingly fruitful. Underline that. They multiplied greatly. Underline that. Increased in numbers, underline that, and became so numerous that the land was filled with them. 9. Look, he said to his people, the Israelites have become far too numerous for us. Grab this. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous, and if war breaks out, will join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. Number 11, so they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. But the more they were oppressed, catch this, the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites and worked them ruthlessly. Number 14, they made their lives bitter with harsh labor in brick and mortar, with all kinds of work in the fields. In all their harsh labor, the Egyptians worked them ruthlessly. I want to reread 12, where we're going to draw the preponderance of our teaching and preaching tonight. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied and spread. So the Egyptians came to dread the Israelites, oppressed into life, oppressed into life. This year we remember and commemorate the 100-year anniversary of the burning down of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Perhaps you have seen it in the news, the evening news, or you've seen it flash on your social media feed, or perhaps you all have talked about it, you and friends. The burning down of Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma, 100 years ago. Unbelievable. Let's drill down deeper. Let me talk a little bit more about it. Hang in there because we're going somewhere with this. The term race riot does not adequately describe the events of May 31 through June 1, 1921 in Greenwood. Greenwood, a neighborhood in the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. In fact, the term itself implies that both blacks and whites might be equally to blame for the lawlessness and violence. The historical record records a sustained and murderous assault on black lives and property. This assault was met by a brave but unsuccessful armed defense of their community by some black World War I veterans and others. During the night and day of the riot, deputized whites killed more than 300 African Americans. They looted and burned to the ground 40 square blocks of 1,265 African American homes, hospitals, schools, churches, and destroyed 150 businesses. White people destroying black people's stuff in America in 1921. White deputies and members of the National Guard arrested. You want to see the victim being blamed for the crime. Arrested and detained 6,000 black Tulsans who were released only upon being vouched for by a white employer or other white citizens. 9,000 African Americans were left homeless and lived in tents well into the winter of 1921. This happened in America in 1921. This happened in America in 1921. But this is not the only massacre that took place during the 1900s. It isn't. Chicago, 1919. Springfield, 1908. East St. Louis, right here in my area, 1917. Vicksburg, 1874. Slocum, 1910. Colfax, 1873. Opelousas, 1868. Clinton, 1875. Elaine, 1919. Memphis, 1866. Wilmington, 1898. Charleston, 2015. You know the church event. Camille, 1868. Ocasee in 1920. Rosewood, 1923. St. Bernard Parish, 1868. New Orleans, 1866. New York, 1863. Washington, D.C., 1919. So, Bishop, why are you bringing this up? Detroit, 1943. The reason I bring this up, it is a preface to the message that we're going somewhere this whole month in on Wednesday nights only, and we'll end on Father's Day, the day after Juneteenth. We're in with a message to men saying orange is the new black. I bring it up because, number one, it is the job of the scholar, the theologian of the house of worship, in particular African American community, in particular a majority black church, is for that man or woman of God to raise these kinds of issues, to inform and inspire, and to know that God is on the side of the oppressed. But you got to know your history. The other reason is that so often these things are swept under the rug, and our children don't even know our story. So it is very important. So if your child is not watching right now, go get them. Get them off the game, have them to watch. Or make sure that you send them to YouTube, watching everything else. Click this on as well. Now, the origin of these massacres started from the bed seas of slavery. We're going somewhere with this. We're going to get to the text. Just hold on. Let's get the history. That said, African Americans have a unique history. Unlike any other ethnic group, African Americans spent 300 plus years as slaves in the United States. African Americans were brought here in chains through the Middle Passage for one purpose and one purpose only: to work the land, to build this country without pay, without reward. From practically the discovery of America to the Emancipation Proclamation, the African American experience in the United States was primarily forced labor, slavery. Now, that history makes us different. No other ethnicity can make that claim. Richard Pryor, deceased comedian, used to always say, we didn't come over here. Somebody came and got us. And he said, if you want to see justice, go down to the courthouse and you'll see just us. The fact is while most of the founders of the United States, including Jefferson, owned slaves, recognize the intellectual incompatibility of the basic equality of human beings with chattel slavery, the truth is that slavery was part of North American history and economy in particular for 3 centuries. It is not easy to change an entire mode of economic production, even today, and getting cheap slave labor. That change did take place, though, through one of the bloodiest conflicts, the Civil War. So, not only that, there are some lessons that we need to learn from then to now to Juneteenth. That's why I said, Geminis, I know you think I'm talking about, oh, what a great month this is. It is with respect to we have to learn something. And then we're going to go to this word, put it together, and make application. Juneteenth is the oldest nationally celebrated commemoration of the ending of slavery in the United States. Dating back to 1865, it was on June 19th that the Union soldiers, led by Major General Gordon Granger, landed at Galveston, Texas, with news that the war had ended and that the enslaved were now free. Freedom finally came on June 19th, 1865, when 2,000 Union troops arrived in Galveston, Texas. The Army announced that more than 250,000 enslaved blacks were now free. Wow. Ain't that something? Got to know your history. And then you have to see your history through the lens of Scripture. Today, we must make biblical application from the Hebrew slaves so we may flourish under oppression. As a people, we are still being oppressed, just without chains and whips, but political policies and systemic racism. This sermon is just the foundation of what we're going to be dealing with on the next couple of Wednesday nights during eChurch. I want to drive us toward not only Juneteenth, but Father's Day as well. Now, I want you to grab something now. On Sundays, though, I'm going to be dealing with a whole nother thing on Sundays. So you need to make both times, Sunday and Wednesday. And Sundays, I'm going to be talking about stuck in the middle. How does it feel to be stuck in the middle? I can't wait to minister that word too. But at any rate, let's get into this word. In our text, we find the beginning of slavery and how people of God overcame it. And we are people of God. Though the attendance numbers in America have slowly declined from the traditional generation, the World War II generation, to now, it has declined slower within the African American community, though it has declined. None is the leading religion in America. None. In other words, no religious category do I find myself in. But I believe that part of the issue is that we fail to help people see themselves in the text. So let's drill deeper to help you see the plight of an oppressed people and how a plight of the oppressed people in Scripture overcame. First thing I want you to understand is this: fear foments oppression. Write that down. Fear foments, F-O-M-E-N-T-S, oppression. Fear does. Look at verse 11 in our pericope. So they put slave masters over them to oppress them with forced labor, and they built Pithom and Ramesses as store cities for Pharaoh. The Egyptians' fear caused them to produce slavery. Their fear of the proliferation of the numbers of the Hebrews who came with Joseph, and there became a Pharaoh who knew not Joseph, right? And that number, you remember how they got there. God sent him ahead, Joseph ahead, and during the 7 years of famine, Joseph had enough ingenuity to make sure that there was enough grain left, and when his brothers found out who he was, that he was really the daddy rabbit in Egypt, they then brought their families there, just a handful of them. But through the years, they have proliferated to the point that the Egyptians are now fearful of them. And the only way that they feel like they can keep them in check is to put them enslave them. Today, fear is causing many in a majority culture to impose oppressive things like voting rights, oppressive things. Do you realize that in Georgia right now, a law has been passed that you can't even give somebody some water while they stand in line waiting to vote? Come on. We got to get this. We can't just rush past an election. We just can't just say, oh, okay, all is well. No, we got to grab a hold of what's happening. And it comes out of fear. It comes out of fear, which is the second thing I need you to grab. Fear reveals inferiority complex. I feel inferior. Look at verse 10. Come, we must deal shrewdly with them, or they will become even more numerous. And if war breaks out, we'll join our enemies, fight against us, and leave the country. Do you realize right now that there is a browning of America? Do you realize that in the next decade or so, you hear different numbers, but do you understand that in your lifetime, America will end up being more brown than white? Do you get a hold of that fact? Get a hold of that fact that in a few years, and there is a fear afoot within the majority culture today, within Europeans, to see, and you see it sweeping the entire world, that Europeans thinking, oh my God, there is a proliferation of people of color. And the way we have to respond out of our fear, as opposed to understanding that all of us are equal in the sight of God. All of us are children of God. And all of us are created in His image. How can you fear someone who is like you, absent their melon and their culture? We're all human. That's what the Egyptians did. They were fearful, and it came out of an inferiority complex. I don't want to drill down much more deeper than that, but there has to be something going on when you fear that you're going to be outnumbered. What is it that you don't see within yourself? Or could it be that you have a sense of, oh my God, look what we have done to this race of people for this long? If they ever get in charge, we're done. But let me tell you know something. The Jesus that we serve will not permit us to bring about vengeance, because God said, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. Fear reveals inferiority complex. Fear foments oppression. Here's the third thing I want you to get. Fear creates infanticide. Fear creates infanticide. What is infanticide? Look at verse 16 and you're going to see. When you are helping the Hebrew women during childbirth on the delivery stool, if you see that the baby is a boy, kill him. Kill the infant. Infanticide. Kill the infant. But if it's a girl, let her live. Isn't it interesting how Hebrew men were killed out of a fear? Isn't it interesting how black men are killed out of a fear? He had a gun in his hand. No, he didn't. He was going to make a move at me. No, he didn't. You know what? Let's just stop right here. I don't want nobody else to tell me anything about the person made a move and you needed deadly force when on January 6th, people cut up and act the POT fool and took every weapon that they could, absent a gun, and had deadly force on police authorities, and none of them but one woman was shot. Just shut it down. Have 5 seats. Don't want to hear it no more. Because if they needed deadly force, nobody needed deadly force. There is a fear that creates something that causes somebody that I need to take you out. Here's the fourth thing. Faith overrides fear. Here comes the gospel. Here comes the good news. I know you're saying, well, Bishop, I'm glad because you got me depressed. No. Let's go with this. Faith overrides fear. Both cannot coexist. You remember when Peter got out of the boat, Jesus says, come, it is me. Peter asked a question. Peter raised the question. He said, look, if it is you, bid me to come. In other words, I will advance. That's what the Greek word means. If it's you, I will advance. And when he got out there, he looked at the wind, of which you cannot see, and he sank. And Jesus lifted him. They had to be very close to the boat, because it's just the next verse they get into the boat. And he says, ye of little faith, why did you half believe, is the Greek of that. Now, here's the thing. Faith and fear cannot coexist. One will remove the other. Just like light and darkness cannot coexist. One will remove the other. And light always removes darkness. I don't care how dark it is, the moment you strike a match, light overwhelms darkness. The same thing about fear. The moment your faith comes alive, it overwhelms fear. How do we know this? And what do we hold on to? That God will, in this oppressive moment that we live, that we will have life. How do we know this? Here it is. Romans 8:31. What then shall we say? In response to these things, come here. If God is for us, who can be against us? So today, tonight, whenever you're watching this, I want you to understand something. Though you may be oppressed on your job, though you may be going through in different situations, though you cannot see your way through right now, walk by faith, not by fear, and know that God is on your side. God is always on the side of the oppressed. You want to know whose side God is? You want to say, who does God pick sides? Yes, God picks sides. He always picks the side of the person that is oppressed. And if God is for us, who can be against us? If God is for you in your marriage, if God is for you in your family, if God is for you on your job, who can be against you? Though you may be oppressed, look and live. My brother, live. And I ask sister, for Jesus Christ, live. Going through some things right now, maybe not as severe as the massacre that we raised at the beginning. Having some issues going on right now, feeling oppressed, feeling a little put upon. I want to encourage you right now. Respond. Respond by typing the word decision and text it to 71441. Make a decision for him. Our team will respond. We'll pray with you. We'll walk alongside of you. You can connect with us because we are a group at New Life. We know what it feels like for somebody to oppress you. But though we have been oppressed, though we may have been put upon, we look and live because God is on our side. So if you don't know him in the pardon of your sin, I want to encourage you right now. If you're not even sure, you say, you know what, Bishop, I listened to you. I heard a lot of things. Can't put them all together, but I do have an emptiness in my heart. Just type the word decision to 71441. Text it. Text it to us so we can respond. So we can respond. Or just put it right there. Put it in the chat area. There are leaders that are watching right now. They'll respond as well. Let's do that. Let's connect. If you're in the area, we would love to connect with you. If you're not in the area, you want to be a part of our online campus, do the same. Do the same. Just respond. Type the word decision to 71. Text it, I should say, to 71441. The Lord be with you. May his face shine upon you and give you peace. I'll see you next week with more eChurch. I'll see you this Sunday with Stuck in the Middle. God bless you. Bye now.
Life Changers, before you close eChurch, don't forget to give your tithes, offering, and generosity matching. There are multiple ways to give. May God bless you, and thank you for being a part of eChurch. IDEX Media does a lot. From IDEX Photography to IDEX Films. We help create forever memories and forever impressions. Imagination, image a world. IDEX Media.